Greetings. My name is David Swisher, and I'm a senior learning experience designer at Indiana Wesleyan University with a long history of innovation with technology in ministry. I'm also an ordained minister with significant pastoral experience, and I was a very early adopter of generative AI. I approached the rapid advance of AI with both enthusiasm and excitement for what's possible, yet also with trepidation and caution, concerned that we use it wisely, ethically, and with integrity, and also consistent with our Christian values and calling. As I prepared for this podcast episode, I reached out to several groups of pastors that I know to field their concerns and to come up with a list of topics they felt we should explore together. I also embraced generative AI to help me think through these topics and ideate what to cover. And of course, I brought my own pastoral experience and questions along with me as well, raising some concerns and questions that I've wrestled with in my own journey. Throughout that collaborative process, we have identified four key areas we should explore today: ethical foundations, practical applications in ministry, navigating human concerns, and theological reflections. For each of these categories, I will unpack several highly relevant questions that are often raised. We'll talk briefly about what this involves and why it matters, and then I'll share a few insights and applications for each. So, the first category of questions I would like to focus on involve ethical foundations. And our first question to consider is, what ethical principles should guide our use of AI in the church? This important question involves themes like stewardship, justice, and the dignity of human beings. It also delves a bit into the Imago Dei, as well as the role of technology and the work of our hands in the creation of ministry content. It matters because we need to ensure that our use and embrace of AI aligns with Christian values and mission. The challenge here is that although it would seem great for me to offer a one size fits all approach to Christian ethics, the reality is that each of us approaches ethics a bit differently, and how you approach it in your congregation needs to be informed by a combination of your own moral philosophy and the approach that your denomination takes to the subject. For example, if you subscribe to social contract theory, you likely will view AI through the lens of mutual agreements and the social fabric of your communities. You would likely utilize a democratic approach to decision making about AI, involving congregational input and considering how AI impacts social cohesion, inclusivity, and the common good. But if you are more into deontological ethics, Kant's approach, you will likely be guided by duty and the inherent worth of individuals. And as a pastor, you're likely to evaluate AI based on principles such as respect for personhood, privacy, and autonomy. Likewise, you would probably resist any AI applications that have the potential to deceive, manipulate, or diminish human interaction and connection. Other pastors may take a more utilitarian approach, or one based on natural law, or based possibly even on an existentialist approach. In my own ministry and scholarly work, I am deeply informed by virtue ethics, and so my pastoral approach tends to focus on the cultivation of moral character. I'm concerned with how AI influences virtues such as empathy, patience, and humility, and I encourage practices and AI tools that build character and community. I am proactively engaged in the discussion and use of generative AI at the Christ-centered university where I work because I want to advocate for the development of virtuous AI, uses and applications that promote values like fairness, transparency, and accountability. Well, our second must-ask question is this: how can we address and mitigate biases in AI systems? Now, this involves the problems of presumptive bias and/or incomplete data sets. It matters because AI can perpetuate social inequalities. It matters because biased or incomplete data sets can lead to unfair or inequitable conclusions, or worse, they can even propagate the same bias by not showing a broader spectrum. It is fairly well documented that there are limitations in the data set that AI uses. Futurist Amy Webb chronicles this well in her second chapter of The Big Nine, her book about AI, where she talks about the insular world of AI's tribes. Women, ethnic minorities, conservatives, and Christians in general were noticeably absent from the early developers of AI, and those voices were seldom included in early AI datasets. Now, as large language models have grown, much of this has been corrected for, but it is still not perfect, and there are indeed persistent gaps. Well, one way to overcome this is to prompt for it. For example, if you ask AI to generate an image of Jesus, or of a disciple, or of a parishioner, it's going to run a mathematical probability to determine the likely gender and ethnicity to depict, and that's going to reflect prevailing norms. But if you want to make sure a particular gender or ethnicity is depicted, say so. Tell it what you want to see. Now, that brings up a third question that we often need to ask about ethical foundations, and that is, what are our responsibilities regarding data privacy and security in using AI? This involves the risk of data breaches and the potential for unintentional disclosure or even misuse of personal information. It matters because we have a moral, spiritual, and pastoral responsibility to protect the confidentiality and trust of our congregation. Well, although generative AI can be a valuable tool for personalizing communications, collaborating to generate letters, improving the clarity and succinctness of content you plan to share, and even proofreading your work, you also need to pay close attention anytime you work with a generative AI that involves uploading files, communications, or documents. Make sure that you know what the data retention and training policy of that particular AI tool is. In other words, read the fine print. Do they use all their submissions to train their AI? If so, be very cautious about what you submit and always anonymize anything that refers to specific people or situations. The last thing you want is that ending up in the wild. Far better would be to use an AI tool that limits access to what you upload only to that specific session and doesn't retrain it beyond that or use it to train its AI. This is one of the reasons I find myself using Claude quite a bit with increasing regularity. This is also where developing a custom GPT for your church may be advantageous so that you can establish the protocols and boundaries and teach it what you want it to know and what you want it to rely on, how you want it to respond. This is also one of the advantages of more nuanced tools like Magai, which allow personas so that you can have certain AIs respond in specific contexts based on a persona that you define. Make sure you discuss these issues with your pastoral staff and volunteers. After all, a compromise at any level can derail all of your best efforts to lead with integrity and establish trust. So, those are three must ask questions regarding ethical foundations. Now, let's talk a bit about practical applications in ministry. And the fourth question we need to ask about AI and ethics is, to what extent can AI assist in sermon preparation and teaching? Well, we have a whole other podcast episode on this specifically, but I'm going to focus on it just a little bit. This is about the role of AI and reliance upon AI in the development of spiritual guidance. It matters because it is important that we balance the benefits of AI for research and creativity with the need for personal, God inspired insight. To those who have never experimented with generative AI, I would imagine that the idea of using AI to craft sermon or teaching content may cause considerable angst. But as my ministry technology friend Jason Moore likes to say, AI is a do it with you kind of thing, not a do it for you thing. It's a collaboration partner. After all, we all know that the things we develop are stronger, more useful, and more thoughtful when we collaborate with others, whether that's a ministry spouse, a fellow pastoral staff member, a small group, a trusted lay leader, or even a Bible college or seminary intern. When we run ideas past others and get their input and suggestions, we often think of things we had not previously considered and ponder angles and applications that weren't on our radar to incorporate had it just been us doing the thinking. That's a good thing, and God uses that. So use AI to help you ideate, collaborate, and explore possibilities and ideas. Ask it to refine and improve what you come up with. Give it your notes and tell it about your audience and your demographic, and ask it to provide you with feedback. Ask it to help you identify examples, applications, or insights that you hadn't previously considered. Ask it to help you consider other voices and perspectives that you may have omitted or that you wouldn't naturally think of. You could even give it a fictional or realistic type of person in your congregation and the issues and concerns they may have, and ask the AI to respond as if it were them to what you plan to share. All of this helps us improve our content and our delivery. But where we should draw the line, the one threshold we dare not cross, is having it do the Holy Spirit's work for us. We absolutely must invest that essential time in prayer, Bible study, and heart preparation to hear the voice of God as we prepare. And of course, make sure you listen to that still small voice and prioritize it over anything else that you read or hear. So, a fifth question we need to ask about AI and ethics is, can AI play a role in pastoral care, and where should we draw the line? Well, this involves carefully navigating the balance between efficiency and personal touch. It matters because of the potential dehumanization of care as well as loss of trust if parishioners perceive that you are inauthentic or overly reliant on a tool to accomplish pastoral nurture and care. Now, many pastors are people persons, but not great at details. Often those with pastoral gifts need assistance keeping track of people personalities, situations, and more. That's okay. God knew this when he called you to this role, and he may very well be providing technology, even AI, as a tool to help you with this. AI can help you craft empathetic messaging, or remind you to send timely notes and follow ups, or help you keep your visitation schedule straight, and even assist you with what to say in difficult and challenging situations. In fact, this is one place where the large volume of experiences that are out there can actually help inform how we approach pastoral care ministry. But we should never sacrifice that individual, deeply personal, heartfelt listening to God. It is also important as you seek the assistance of generative AI to make sure that you are careful to remove prompts and reminders that would make it obvious or even disingenuous that you used an AI to craft it. And if you think the person you're preparing messaging for might lose trust in you if they learn that you would use AI to help craft your messaging, you may want to reconsider, because that trust from your parishioners is essential and is much easier, much harder to rebuild than it is to lose. Well, that wraps up the practical applications of ministry. Now let's consider a few questions that are centered around navigating human concerns. And that brings up our sixth must ask question about AI and ethics. Is there a risk that AI will replace human roles within the church? Well, this involves concerns about job displacement and the loss of personal ministry touch. It matters because of the inherent value of human presence and relationship in ministry roles. As impressive as AI capabilities are, it is important to realize that generative AI doesn't know the subject matter or understand the data that it's spitting out. It's simply using predictive analytics to determine what words would most likely come next in the given context. Because of this, a generative AI can't think. It is not generating original thought, and it can't explain or process the relationship between the words it provides. It's simply analyzing data patterns and making predictions. Likewise, it has no empathy. It has no idea why these words or these visual examples it generates are significant, or why they occur more frequently in the data set, and it has no context or connection to explain that. Furthermore, it can't do emotion. It may find examples of where humans have used emotional terms and phrases to communicate, but it won't understand what that means or how it connects. And lastly, it has no understanding. It knows the terms and phrases that appeared most frequently in the data set, and it scanned the context to be able to generate that, but it has no comprehension of what it actually means. So this is extremely important for ethics in a pastoral context. A few examples, as identified by generative AI, include: one, emotional intelligence. AI lacks genuine emotional intelligence and the capacity for deep empathy. As pastors, you can highlight the importance of human emotion in ministry, demonstrating that AI cannot truly understand and respond to the complex emotional states of congregants. Second, ethical decision making. AI does not have a moral compass or spiritual intuition. So you can emphasize how pastoral roles involve ethical and moral decision making that come from a place of faith and conviction, not just logical reasoning. Third, community building. The church is a community hub with a social context and vital human fabric to it. AI cannot build or develop human relationships or provide the sense of belonging and care that comes from human led community initiatives. And lastly, sacred rituals. Sacraments and other religious rituals require personal touch that AI simply cannot replicate. As pastors, you can stress the sanctity of these practices and their rootedness in human presence and tradition. Well, does that mean that AI will never replace human roles within the church? No, but it does emphasize the importance of human roles in these vital functions. Also, although AI itself will never replace you as pastor or replace any other key ministry role, those pastors and ministry leaders who know how to use AI effectively in their role could very well replace those who don't. And the same is true for most positions in the workplace as well. Like most technology enabled roles, those who can learn to adapt and work with the new technology will have a definitive advantage and clear longevity over those who resist or who do not want to learn new skills. So this brings up our seventh must ask question about AI and ethics in ministry. How can we help our congregation navigate fears and uncertainties about AI? This involves the very real perceptions of our congregation members and their need for reassurance and guidance in a culture where rapid and disruptive technology innovation is rampant, and much of it of the kind they may have limited or no familiarity with. It matters because the rapid proliferation of AI in recent years has led to much anxiety about the long-range impact of AI on society and individual lives. And even the experts aren't confident and are divided on what that long-range impact will be and how soon that would happen. So this is a complex issue with lots of ramifications and implications. You may need to teach about biblical principles that should guide our use of technology. For that, I would recommend books by Shane Hipps, Craig Detweiler, Quentin Schultz, and Brent Latham, who all offer great books and research in this area. You may also want to consider offering teaching on discipleship in a digital age. The Barna Group, Kenny Jang of Church Tech Today, Adam Graber of Faith Tech, and others offer some great resources for that conversation. Teaching on the Imago Dei could also be important, especially to reaffirm the value of humans made in God's image. You could emphasize that while AI can mimic certain aspects of human intelligence, it lacks the divine spark that imbues humans with worth and purpose. There may also be a need to provide one-on-one pastoral care and counseling for those who have fears and anxieties about AI, offering reassurances rooted in faith. And there will also likely be a need down the road to support those who are impacted by technology, whether that involves workshops or orientations on using technology and AI well, or possibly even assisting those who may be eventually displaced by an AI savvy worker. Well, that wraps up our questions related to navigating human concerns. For our final section, let's talk about theological reflections. And for that, our must ask question number 8 is: how does AI challenge or affirm our understanding of human uniqueness and creativity? Well, this hits at the very heart and core of the Imago Dei, the image of God in man, and the creative capacity we are endowed with by God. It matters because AI, at least perceptively, has the potential to create things apart from human involvement. And this does raise some concerns about the theological implications of human-like capabilities. As my tech friend Jason Moore explains it, AI at its core is a creation of human ingenuity, a tool developed by the God-given intellect and creativity bestowed upon us. The people who created AI are created in the likeness of a creative God. That creativity is infused in them because God put it there. Just like any tool, from the pen to the printing press, AI in itself is neither inherently good nor evil. It's neutral technology. Its moral value is determined by how we use it. So with that in mind, here is must ask question number 9. In what ways can AI serve God's kingdom, and what limitations must we recognize? Well, this involves opportunities for outreach, maximizing creative productivity and ministry efficiency, but also raises concerns about over-reliance upon AI. It matters because it is important that we envision AI as a tool that can be used for kingdom purposes without idolizing technology or unnecessarily relying upon it. I think it is important for us to remember that all technologies are creations of man, but that human ingenuity and creativity that developed them came from God. Technology itself nearly always extends some human capability or capacity. For example, God gave us a voice, but the microphone extends that human capability and amplifies it so that we can speak to larger groups of people. God gave us feet, but our capacity to travel is limited by how much walking we can endure, and various forms of transportation technology extend that human capacity, allowing us to accomplish more. Remember, technology by itself is morally neutral. It has no soul, and it has no capacity to make decisions. Therefore, it is what people do with the technology that makes it morally good or evil. And that's where the core of our AI ethics questions need to center. Lastly, our final must-ask question about AI and ethics for pastors is: what does the rapid development of AI say about our stewardship of God's creation? Well, this involves the ethical use of technology in stewarding the Earth's resources and addressing human needs. It matters because how we use technological advancements can bring honor to God and benefit humanity, or it can cause harm. It matters because reflecting on the responsibility that we have to use technology wisely and ethically for the glory of God and the benefit of his creation is one of the most important responsibilities we can possibly have. Well, in the act of creating and developing AI, we are exercising our God-given creativity and intelligence. This can be seen as part of fulfilling our mandate from Genesis 1 to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Likewise, stewardship implies responsibility. The wisdom with which we develop and deploy AI speaks to our discernment and prudence. AI has the potential to solve complex problems and improve living conditions. As stewards, we are called to use such technology wisely, ensuring that it serves humanity and creation positively, aligning with the principles found in scriptures. But AI also has the potential to both enhance as well as disrupt traditional forms of work. The biblical concept of work as a part of human dignity, as seen in the lives of figures like Paul the tentmaker, requires us to consider how AI impacts employment and the dignity of labor. Good stewardship would mean using AI to enhance human work rather than replace it, ensuring that technology aids human flourishing rather than diminishing it. AI can be used to monitor and protect the environment, helping us to fulfill the command to tend and keep the garden from Genesis 2. This could be seen as a modern extension of stewardship, where AI assists in managing Earth's resources sustainably, predicting environmental changes, and contributing to the preservation of biodiversity. But at the same time, the rapid pace of AI development also brings to the fore ethical considerations that relate to stewardship. For example, are we playing God? Are we respecting the boundaries set by our Creator? Are we potentially creating idols? Stewardship involves not only action, but restraint, guided by ethical reflection that's grounded in Scripture. So, pastoral guidance can help congregants navigate these complex issues, providing a space for reflection, discussion, and prayerful consideration of the path forward. In conclusion, as I develop this podcast content, I really enjoyed using generative AI to creatively ideate possibilities and explore possible potential topics and wordings. The end result is very much my own work, but I have enjoyed and been enriched by this dialogue. And since the topic we've been exploring is ethics as it relates to AI in the church context, one fun thought experiment I decided to try was to ask ChatGPT if Jesus were alive and ministering today, would he embrace and utilize generative AI in his ministry? Why or why not? And would there be certain limits or cautions he wouldn't cross? Well, the AI's response was predictably nuanced. To the question of would Jesus embrace generative AI, it answered likely with discernment. But the example it gave was fascinating. It said Jesus' ministry was characterized by meeting people where they were, using stories, parables, and interactions that connected deeply with individuals' lives and cultures. Given this, he might well use generative AI as a tool to engage with people in today's digital and technologically advanced context. AI could serve to spread his messages more widely, tailor parables for the modern age, or even help identify those in need of his teachings or healing in new, efficient ways. And then it gave two examples of why he might. One, to amplify outreach, and two, to foster connection, giving appropriate and relevant scripture examples of each. It also identified a few limits or cautions too, including the importance of maintaining the personal touch that Jesus was known for, ethical use and integrity, especially considering the importance of integrity, truth, and heart condition that Jesus emphasized so much in his teachings, and avoiding idolatry. In other words, using a tool without idolizing it. I thought that was a fascinating and appropriately nuanced response. And in that light, I would wholeheartedly agree. I hope you found this conversation and this discussion of these essential questions to ask of AI and ethics for pastors and ministry. And I look forward to the conversation that follows. Have fun.